Batman, issue 8, legacy number 936, Matt Fraction writing with Ryan Sook on the art. And this issue has a kind of a focus, as three kind of scenes that it keeps kind of bouncing around. One is the journalist talking to the kid who caught the cops being doing whatever with Robin and all that, and Vandal Savage picking up the Batarang. They're on the way home on the train, and there's a conversation there. The second conversation is Vandal Savage and the new mayor, Poison Ivy, and Vandal's trying to convince her to basically just make it official that the bats are all outlawed. And then the third story is Batman meeting up with Alan Scott to get some advice and opinions on Vandal Savage. And to me, that was the most interesting of the three, because I like this idea of realizing that Vandal Savage normally goes for bigger things than just this. So this idea that he's taken over Gotham feels a bit small for Vandal Savage, and the deduction they make here is that in some way this is personal. Like, this is not just about him doing the thing that he needs to do next. This is about Batman has stopped him before. He's been a thorn in his side, and a big part of this is that he wants to basically, if Batman keeps, the way they phrase it is, if Batman keeps wanting to beat Vandal at his own game, Vandal wants to beat Batman on his turf. He wants to beat Batman by taking Gotham from him.
And it's that thing, I think it summed it up, Fraction summed this up perfectly, is that Vandal Savage doesn't worry where his next meal is going to come from. It's what crop is going to grow his next meal, right? He's usually thinking in such the long term that you don't expect Vandal Savage to sit and play petty, like, oh, I'm gonna, mess with Batman this way. So it brings that attention to him, and just the idea that we know that he can't leave Gotham, right? Because if he leaves for whatever reason, that the abilities that he has start to fade. They
bring up the whole he came to Gotham to get the 3 pieces of the meteor. Now I cannot tell you what story that was in. I remember it happening when, as soon as they said it, I'm like, I remember this being a thing. I could not tell you if this was even in a Batman book. It probably was, but I don't remember when it happened.
Yeah,
but I remember talking about it. So,
but just the fact that they don't dwell on that they do make it like, oh, he wants to beat Batman on his turf because this is what he does. Vandal Savage, if nothing, he's a conqueror, right? And now he is playing the short game when he's so used to playing the long game, and he's going to win. And so hearing that, discussion between Alan Scott and Batman, and the fact that it's in this diner and Batman's in full Batman, right, garb, and just the reason that Batman gives there is like, well, I want these people to see me. Like, I'm not like this specter, looking at him from above, right? Like, I can go sit in a diner. And it is kind of silly, but again, I like what Fraction's doing.
It's more than just that, though. He points out that this is a part of the city that feels like they've been forgotten, and he wants to make sure that he's seen so that they know he's still around, that these streets are still being under his protection, and that no one's forgotten them. And then it's not just about them; he's making sure that other people know he's here as well. And then that's when look out the window and the cop car goes past, and it's like, oh, this is about making a statement that, Batman or the Batman allies, whoever it is around, is going to be here and keeping an eye on this place. So, like, I like that, and it feels like that, and it's not just like a general thing, because that's something Batman sometimes does generally, is like, oh, I need to like keep the mystique of the bat up. Here it's a specific retaliation because of the Vandal Savage problem, because Vandal Savage has been trying to say that the bats are outlawed and they're not protecting you anymore, and so on and so on. This is like a direct response to that, of like making a show of like, not even force, just a show of like I don't know, existence. Like, hey, we're here, we're not gone anywhere, and this isn't over just because Vandal says it is. So I liked that conversation quite a bit. I thought like it was nice. I think some people may complain this issue isn't action packed because it's so conversational, but I actually liked that this change of pace of just slowing down and letting it mostly be these conversations.
Well, and it's showing that Fraction can change gears, right? Because we had that whole issue that was just a chase, right? That was one of our favorites of the so far.
Oh, the date issue
taken over. Yeah, and and then we had that whole Joker issue that was kind of a combination of things, and it really made you think about this. And now we sit down and it's not just a conversation, right? It's the three of them and how they're relating to what's going on. And as someone that's also reading Ivy, seeing Fraction fit all of that in as well, and this inferring her decisions in Ivy. So I'm wondering how much those two creators are working in tandem to make this happen. Because again, this seeing what she goes through here with Vandal and the type of like the thought that she's giving it gives some decisions that I'll talk about in Poison Ivy later a different vibe, you know. And I feel like you only can get that if you're reading both, but that's not necessary. You know, they still stand out, but you just get a more like an in-depth and a richer development of these characters. So yeah, because her as mayor seems like a gimmick until here, where he, you know, plays up on that. I was like, you know, you've had issues with the bat before. If you do this for me, it does make sense, you know. And all you have to do is just sign the paperwork. I'll take care of the rest, you know. So to see that play the political side as well, I thought was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, it all boils down to her saying, well, yeah, you clearly want this, but, you know, to be political about it, what's in it for me? Like, what do I get? Is this an exchange? And that also feeds into the conversation between the retired journalist and the kid, with him saying, yeah, like, you know, like, he talks a lot about how he used to believe that people were more nuanced and there's no such thing as just purely good or purely bad. But as he's gotten older, he doesn't really believe that. Like, the motives for why people do things change, but basically the good people will do things just to do them, like to, you know, to help sake, as opposed to the more bad people who will only do something in exchange for something in return. And that's how he kind of breaks the people down into two groups. I really like their stuff, particularly towards the end. There's that great page right towards the end of their stuff. I mean, it ends with a cliffhanger that I think that kid's like apartment building's on fire. I think that was the implication there with that last page. But there's a moment where a cop car comes out of the alleyway, and it feels like for a moment it's speeding to hit the kid, like almost to shut him up. And it just swerves at the last second. Clearly they've just got a call to go somewhere else, so they come out and like turn. But the way it builds that suspense of like, oh, this might be the moment where like they come after him, and then they just sort of turn. But you can tell that in the moment the kid was scared of that. Even the old man was maybe a little scared of that, and it was just kind of like, oh, okay, this is doing such a good job of building like the idea that the city's like just like tense, like the city's on guard right now. Everyone's feeling it. Everyone's feeling. Everything sort of bubbling up around them, which all just makes Vandal's like claims that, oh, Gotham's never been safer, it's never felt better, the cops have never been prouder than right now. And I'm like, that's not how everyone else out in the street feels. Everyone's on edge.
No, that's a smokescreen, and that's fear, right? That's they're preying on that, and because the conversation they're having where that leads up to the moment you're talking about with the cop car and the headlights on the kid is that you know some folks are afraid of everything. And they see everybody else out there as threats. And of course, these are two men of color, right? So Fraction also coloring it with that. And then the kid is the one that says threats right as the car swerves. You know, so the way that they're interplay this whole thing. And then, yeah, it looks like his building's on fire. So it's, you know, nothing's, again, it's definitely not as safe as it's been, but there is a smoke screen for Savage to use this type of stuff.
And I really like as well that moment with the car coming out of the alleyway. Like, that page is silent. The conversation actually ends the previous page, and then it's like, you know, they hear the noise, the car's like coming out of the darkness, the headlights come on. It's all very well paced. It's probably the best kind of like sequential art in the issue for this particular issue. I mean, there's some fighting early on, you know, some guys try to mug Alan Scott for the intro to him being in the book, but to me this was the standout kind of like visual sequence of the whole thing. So yeah, but like, you know, like we said at the end, it seems like Ivy does sign the legislation, I guess. I don't know, whatever the paper is, and then apartment building's on fire, and that's right as like, because the kid's like, hey, like maybe they're onto us, you know, trouble's coming for us because we tried to speak up about this, and he's like, nah, when trouble comes we'll know it. And then they look up and they see this building on fire, and again, I think the implication is that it's maybe his apartment building that's been set on fire, but you know, if I'm wrong, we'll find out next time, I'm sure. But a couple of details that I liked that were more funny than anything else was Alan Scott complaining that Batman made him pay for the coffee, and he's like, yeah, but you're rich, and he's like, yeah, but so are you. Yes, but they don't know that. They're not
Yeah.
allowed to know I'm rich. I have to keep that a secret. So you pay. I thought that was funny.
I thought that was real funny. Yeah. I also like the conversation with Savage and Ivy, and then he feeds a fly to one of her fly traps and talking about catching more flies with honey. But it's like, well, yeah, that's not really what he's doing. That's the appearance, and that just reinforces the through line that nothing is what it seems below the surface.
Yeah. Yeah, because he's doing the thing. He's throwing shade on Gordon and the previous police departments for working with Batman and saying that, oh, everything they do in the name of justice is tainted. It's all tainted because they're breaking the law to do it. And it's just all a bunch of, it's...
Mm-hmm.
It feels like he's using a lot of platitudes, a lot of filler words. It's traditional, like when someone's like, I won't say gaslighting, but it's very traditional, politician speak of trying to sway the audience.
Yeah, no, and the way that he's saying things about, well, if you break a law, you're not maintaining the law. But it's like, but if you break an unjust law, then you're upholding law, right? It's one of those things that it doesn't seem to make sense, but it does, and that's what he's playing at. And that leads to this awesome splash page by Sook that has, the different versions of Savage over time, and then the different versions of Ivy since her creation. And they kind of just meld into this collage, and it looks really cool. And you almost forget what they're talking about because you're getting distracted by all these different versions of themselves.
Yeah, he's basically talking about, how because of how long he's lived, he's always thinking in the long game, and because she's connected to the plants and the history and where they're going to grow in the future. He's trying to kind of bond with her. He's trying to find common ground, common earth, if you will, for the roots of their relationship. I'll stop now. But I mean, I thought this was a good issue. Now, did I like it as much as the one-on-one Joker in the Tank issue or the Date issue? Probably not quite as much, but I still liked how focused it was and how it kind of sort of nudged the story forward and built kind of the atmosphere of the city right now and how things are feeling. And I think that's the great thing about having the kid and the journalist as the third pair of characters, is that they feel like they're representing the normal people.
I feel it's been a while since we've gotten street level Batman, and that's really, I feel, what Fraction's doing at this point. It started looking like there was going to be this big, huge, grand story with the Minotaur, right? And the different crime factions in Gotham. And then we start focusing on the police and whatnot. And then just he's done a really good job at bringing this back down to human levels.
Yeah.
We have a Green Lantern in here and an Immortal Man, but we're also focusing on this kid and the washed up journalist.
And I'm sure the Minotaur dude and all that other stuff is all going to be a big part of this. But it's doing a good job of seeing how this is affecting the regular people. And by the regular people, I just mean not the costume vigilantes and the supervillains that are now in power. That's all I mean. So I like that side of it, and it does and I love the kind of the connections here of there's a moment in the Batman and Alan Scott conversation when a cop car goes past, and then later on you've got the cop car swerving in front of the other characters. Now there's no implication that's the same cop car by any means, but it's building this idea that the police being around are kind of almost this just constant threat that we're actually nervous to see, as opposed to maybe what they should be inspiring. So I like that feeling there. If again, it feels like it's really built a status quo and an atmosphere for the city right now, and the main threat is actually Vandal Savage's police force, not anything else. So really interesting and cool. And I'm excited to see as well, when we bring Gordon back into the plot, for example, and him trying to maybe stand up to Savage or whatever, which you expect he's probably going to do at some point. Maybe there's probably going to be some grand relighting of the signal at some point to try and give hope to the city, and maybe Gordon will find it in storage and put it on a different roof and light it up just to let everyone know Batman's still fighting or something. I don't know, but I see big moments like that in our future.
No, it's definitely doing that thing where the cops are omnipresent because they're just everywhere.
That's a good word. Omnipresent's a good word.
Sandwiches.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah, and the art, you know what? I was a little, at first I was like, oh no, it's not the regular artist, but honestly, I thought Ryan Sook mostly killed it here. All those sequential moments I talked about were really well done. The subtle facial expressions for all the conversations were pretty good. It felt very consistent. It felt kind of, you know, like it felt in line with what the art in the book has been, even though it isn't Jimenez. So honestly, as far as like you open it to the next issue of a book and you're disappointed it's not the regular artist, this is about the best outcome you could ask for, really.
Because I didn't really miss Jimenez. Like, I like Jimenez's art a lot, but this wasn't a downgrade. It's just different, you know. And I do like there's a cinematic quality to some of the stuff, just like there's like a fade when Ivy's signing the paperwork, right? So you see him, you know, doing like the swearing an oath, right? And then underneath there, it's a fade into the legislation that she's signing. And I really like when comics do that cinematic kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think the coloring looks very similar, so I'm assuming it's the same colorist. So it does feel very in line with what the book has been. And if Ryan Sook's here for a full arc or whatever, I'm not going to be mad about it by any stretch.
No, not at all.
So, no, very, very good stuff. All right, what are you giving Batman issue 8?
I'm gonna give this a straight 8.
8. Yeah, I think I'm tempted to go to 8.5, but I think I will agree on the 8. I think I'll be a little conservative, but I do really like the issue, and I think it does a good job of setting up. I mean, I didn't really mention it, but just the final page is the newspapers, like, you know, the headline, oh, you know, Batman and Robin are wanted, and that's kind of the big ending.